In Boonville, Missouri, there is a home. It's my home, and it stands at 617 East High Street. It was built for me, by me, and my wife, Charles Edward Andrews Sr. and Jenny Dobbins Andrews. With the help of my father, who was a tinner, we built this home on fashionable High Street. It had a tin roof, and that tin roof was actually still on the house till a couple of years ago, and it had a little tin chimney also, and that was there also. It's changed a bit. Boonville has changed. High Street's changed a bit, but my home is still standing. And 127 years ago is when it was built. Around 1890, the home was 5 years old. In this picture, as you see, I'm sitting there on the left, and on my right, back toward the porch, is a house servant, Liza Fisher. My wife Jenny is seated in the other chair, and our daughter, our firstborn, is Flory. She's standing by Jenny, and to the right of Jenny is our first and oldest son, Charles Edward Andrews Jr., who we called Charlie. And then sitting next to me is our second son, Hardage Lane Andrews II. From this house, looking to the north out the back, is a commanding view of the Missouri River. You can see for miles and miles. Here's how I look in May of 1894. I was about 45 years old. I was a businessman. I owned a hardware store, and I was heavily into real estate, and I was also a farmer. So I'm going to tell you the story of my life, including my wife, my parents, and my children, and all how it revolves around Boonville. My mother, Margaret Baird Andrews, was born in 1817. She's a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as was my father, David Andrews Sr. In this daguerreotype, which was probably taken in St. Louis, she would be about 40 years old. This was taken in August of 1857. Here's another picture of my mother. A little later, probably around 1866, she would have been 49 years old, and then again a little later in her life. My father, her husband, David Andrews Sr., also a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was born in 1810. This daguerreotype was also taken in August of 1857, and he would have been 47 years old. Our parents, my parents, were devout Southerners. My father was a Methodist, and he fought on the side of the South. He fought in the battles of Boonville. He made canteens out of tin for the Confederate soldiers. And as a result, he was arrested and beat up, and he was left to die. But when he recovered, he was then pulled off to jail, and he was going to be hanged as a Southern sympathizer, a Confederate, against the Union. And my mother, at that time, had several small children, and she went to Jefferson City and begged for the mercy on my father's life. And the judge was very sympathetic to her and very moved by her statement, and he let my father go. So he was able to come back home to us. They built and raised us in a large mansion on Main Street in Boonville, Missouri. It was on the east side of the street. It was right across the street from Thespian Hall. That hall still stands, but my parents' house does not. All 5 of their children were born in that house. My father was outline portrayed in the History of Cooper County, As Was I, which was published in 1919. This is a picture of him around 1865 at the age of 55. My parents had 5 children. The oldest was Hardage Lane Andrews I. He was born in 1838. My parents had come to Boonville around 1835 through St. Louis from Pittsburgh. My oldest brother, Hardage, was named for a St. Louis doctor, Hardage Lane. And my brother, Hardage Lane, grew up to be in the trade of a jeweler and also in livestock in the pork packing business. And he grew up and moved on to San Jose, California in the 1860s. And my parents' second son, born in 1844, was David Andrews Jr. This is how he looked around 1875. He would have been around 31 years old. A few years after Hardage Lane moved to San Jose, David also moved there, and he pursued the trade of tinner just like my father. My brothers, Hardage Lane and David, never